You know why I pulled you over?
Depends on how long you were following me.
Why don't we just take it from the top?
Here it goes. I lied. I censored the American people. I censored COVID-19 content. I censored the Hunter laptop story. I helped rig an election. I changed
lanes without signaling while running a red light and speeding.
Is that all?
No.
I have unpaid parking tickets. Be gentle.
Where I come from, Senator, they call this having a bee in your bonnet. I'm pissed off about this. I'm angry about it because members of my team, excellent members of my team who you've met, my executive producer, ALX, was deleted from the internet because he dared talk about the Hunter Biden laptop, among other things, sharing memes and so on. And I have no doubt that Elvis Chan, ALX, let me know if you have direct evidence of this. I have no doubt that this Elvis Chan assisted in that operation to try and kill my company, to try and kill conservative creators, to eliminate us from being able to do the work that we do every single day. And so this really pisses me off. Why is this guy still working for the FBI?
You know, I think it's actually probably better he does work for the FBI. Now, listen, hear me out on this one. Because he's still there, he can still be investigated. That means that Kash Patel, who I'll be visiting with later today, in fact, around, well, I won't tell you when, but this afternoon, him and I are meeting. And in this conversation, I'm sure will be brought up. But as long as he's there, Kash can still go and talk to him openly about these cases. Because if he was gone, we would have to bring him back into a subpoena of a court, which could get tricky because remember, that would have to probably go through a D.C. court. And we also know those don't actually line up with the Republican agenda here. We can talk about how many injunctions they put against President Trump versus Biden and Obama combined. So it's actually, Benny, I think it's probably better that he's still there so we can talk to him. Plus, Kash will make him comply with the subpoena that he completely ignored. Remember, he ignored the subpoena underneath the Biden administration. Now that he's underneath the Trump administration and the director is not Director Wray, but it's Director Patel, he'll probably have to comply with that subpoena and come to Congress. So it could work out in our favor.
So we have everybody turning on this practice. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan for like 2 hours talking about how abusive the Biden administration was in censoring your constituents, in censoring any capacity for us to have an alternative media in this country. He said it was something out of 1984. And obviously they've reversed a lot of these policies, but there needs to be a little bit of muscle here. Like the people who did this to us and tried to kill independent media in the cradle, they're real, like true enemies of the First Amendment and the core of what kind of makes this country work. What is the Senate, how seriously is this being taken inside of the Senate? The Schellenberger report.
Yeah, so it's taken really serious because this is part of the deep state that we're trying to weed out. We have once in a generation opportunity here to actually change the back doors of the government, the ones that have been working for political party and not the American people. Now, what's funny is the Democrats who control this, they're the ones that's complaining that we're trying to get rid of all these people so we can control the government. We're just trying to get the government to work for the people again. And you've got to clean out these back offices. And these back offices are people just like this gentleman to what you're talking about. And it's a very serious ordeal because we feel like we have 18 months to get this done. We're not guaranteed to win the election in the midterm. In fact, historically, it's going to be difficult, but we feel like if we deliver on the promises that President Trump made to the American people, that we'll succeed in that. At the same time, it's not a guarantee. So we are working tirelessly underneath the leadership of Leader Thune, which, a lot of people questioned him, like they were calling him Mitch 2.0. I think he's proven himself completely different at this point. He is running the Democrats ragged right now. He's got them extremely scared, and these investigations are continuously. And even though you're not hearing about it, a lot of times they're happening down in SCIFs because a lot of this stuff is classified information. This is public information, but actually how they got the information, why they got the information, what was the tradecraft they used for it, who was their boss, who was actually saying it. A lot of this stuff has been redacted from open reports. It has been in closed files, which you have to be read in to get into. And so the Biden administration did a lot to cover the tracks up, but we're having to find it and go through it. And we're working closely with the White House. We're working with Kash Patel. We're working with Tulsi Gabbard. We're working with Leader Thune. We're working with Speaker Johnson. We're all working on this, not just this one, but there's probably a dozen more just like this.
Wow. Very interesting. What subject matter?
A lot of it has to do with cover-up. A lot of it has to do with the election. I'm not going to get down that road of election, but what was actually covered up during the election. So when you start talking about the censorship, for instance, you brought up Mark Zuckerberg, so I'll bring up Mark Zuckerberg. When that guy started getting jiu-jitsu, he changed, not just physically, but the guy changed mentally too. And I probably talked to him several times a month. And right after the election, he says, I'm glad to finally be able to get back to our base, to get back to do what we're doing. And I just kind of sent a question mark. He says, you don't understand the handcuffs. I'm paraphrasing here, the handcuffs that the Democrat Party put on us. Okay, well, that opens up a whole can of worms, right? Because that's freedom of speech at that time. And if these guys are actually working under the rule, which we consider that we refer to as the town square, to wherever they can be held harmless for what's posted on their site, because that's the town square rule. You know what I'm talking about? And if that's the case, then who was telling them to be censored? Who was telling them to pull this stuff down? Was it coming directly out of the White House? Was it coming from the FBI? Was it coming from the DOJ? What threats were being made? So every time you pull a string here, that string opens up a little bit more and you find another door you got to walk through and another string you got to pull. It's very interesting. And I'm not this conspiracy person, but we are working really, really hard to uncover it so we can get these people out of the government that forgot their core job. And that's for the people, by the people.
So you ask, like, who was actually doing the censorship of Meta? Well, here you go. Here's the document, Senator. Here's Elvis Chan back at it, talking about how Facebook could potentially get legal cover from the government as long as they censored conservatives.
But keep in mind, Elvis Chan was just a FBI agent. Zero chance he can do that on himself. Remember, the FBI, for your listeners, the FBI isn't a standalone department. It is under the DOJ. So does this go all the way to Garland? Who inside the DOJ? Because the agent can just say, pull it down. The threats to pull it down. What did DOJ say to these platforms to get them to pull this down? It wasn't just because they were working with them because they had the same blood type or they believed on the same, socialist agenda that the Democrat Party was moving towards. What was the threat? Because I got to believe there was a threat here. What was that and who ordered it?
It seems like an obvious civil rights violation.
You think?
Like the federal government can't. I mean, it seems like something that could be prosecutable via the Civil Rights Division. I'm going to meet with them tomorrow, actually. Yeah. We'll be at the DOJ tomorrow. It seems like something that's easily prosecutable because this is the federal government with all of the weight, power, money, guns, pointing a proverbial, maybe a literal gun at the heads of these companies to censor Americans, which is a direct violation, of course, of our civil liberties, of our constitutional liberties. Right? Wouldn't that be like fertile ground?
It could be, but what you don't want is an scapegoat. So you don't want Elvis to be the scapegoat. Right now, Elvis is probably the scapegoat, but there was zero chance Elvis was making this call himself. Now, mind you, it's the FBI. They're kind of used to doing things that they cover their tracks on, right? There's a tradecraft that goes along with it. And that's why I say it's probably good that Elvis is still part of the FBI because we can bring him in and start saying, who told you? Now, who's his boss? Who told his boss? Did Director Wray have direct knowledge of this? And then if Director Wray had it, then it had to go to Garland. If that's the case, there could be a ton of charges here. If not, if they technically didn't do anything illegal, let's just make that assumption. If not, there could be a lot more people let go, not just in the FBI, but now you're talking about the DOJ. We don't want to stop with the front guy. That's never the front guy that makes the decision. It's the front guy that's being told what to do. There's people in other offices that are the front guy.
That's very interesting. Okay, so we've covered so it looks like the investigation here is moving forward and you're getting the documents and we're actually able to show you documents of the FBI rigging the 2020 election on the show. Yeah. And I'm very thankful for that.
What you have stuff is that was public, kind of public record. That doesn't show anything. we've got to cover everything else that is very difficult to find. The Biden administration, even though you had an absent-minded president, they did everything they could to cover their tracks. They started covering their tracks in July. They saw the writing in the wall on the wall in July. And so it's not like we surprised them and just won the election in November. They had a lot of time to be prepared. When they realized they didn't have anybody else to step in that could win the election, and they had to revert to Kamala Harris, who had worse numbers of Joe Biden, they knew they were in serious trouble at the time.
So, Senator, are you saying that there was destruction, wanton destruction of evidence?
I don't know if it was or not. We haven't found it. We're just trying to find it out. That's what we're trying to go towards. We don't know. Maybe that when you get to that level, are they really sending out a text message? Are they really putting it in writing? Are they calling from a government phone? Probably not. So this is the kind of stuff that you got to find, and it's not as easy as what you think. These are professionals that understood how to cover their tracks. It's their tradecraft. It's what they do. It's how they stay alive. It's how we infiltrate our enemies and be able to have spies put inside places. It's not. We are the best in the world at it.
Well, we look forward to your investigation and the results of that. We do our very best on this channel, Senator, to try and talk about realistic timelines here. Yeah.
And I could tell you realistic timelines. I'm telling you what our timeline is. We know we have 18 months.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're working really, really, really hard at it. And of course, Benny, with you being out there on it all the time, you were very outspoken about this from the beginning, right? Sometimes it could cost you somewhat your career, right?
Well, yeah, they damn well did. Yeah, that's exactly right. I had to move out of DC for it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have, I know this is personal to you, and all of us want it to work swiftly and fast. I'm just telling you, it's not that easy, but we want to do it too. We don't want to have a repeat. We don't want to deal with this. We don't want President Trump to leave office in 3.5 years, and then they continue to go after him because they're biased at it, which we know it will happen. Their hatred towards him is only growing. It's not subsiding. Even though he won the popular voting, he swept swing states, even though he won the electoral vote by margins that we haven't seen in a very long time. The American people spoke loudly. The Democrats have not gave up. I mean, I literally just came from the House floor presiding, and I had to hear Chuck Schumer for 15 or 20 minutes spew lie after lie after lie after lie over what President Trump and Doge and the Republican Party is doing. They are doubling down on their hatred. And so we have to get rid of this, because if we don't, what's going to happen in 18 months? They're going to try to impeach President Trump. God forbid we lose control of the chambers. They're going to try to impeach President Trump, and we're going to fight this problem. He's going to leave office, and they're going to see it all over again. So we know, the White House knows, the Republican Party knows, we have to get rid of these individuals that's leading it on the outside as fast as possible.
This is that you bring up such an important point. The moment that they get a 1-seat majority in any chamber, it's impeachment time. It'll be just impeachment House. Immediately. Yeah,
they'll do it at the House for sure. Yep. And then we probably have a hard time getting convicted, but we're still going to deal with it. Totally. In the House, underneath Nancy Pelosi, she's not going to be there, but she still pulls the strings. But let's just say Hakeem Jeffries, right? God forbid he becomes speaker. They'll be impeaching him every month. I mean, I'm exaggerating here, but they really will continue.
Are you really though, Senator?
I don't know. Actually, you can't judge crazy. It's kind of like I tell people, you can't argue with crazy. You can't judge crazy either. You don't know what they're going to do. And right now, the Democrat Party is acting completely like they've lost their ever-loving mind.
It's berserker mode. Okay, I'm getting the call that you have a very hard out, but you name-dropped Schumer, so as quickly as you want to do it, what the hell with this Schumer suing Trump to let criminal aliens vote? This is an unbelievable document. We'll put it up. Please. Just the floor is yours.
Well, this is just more of them going after President Trump for President Trump doing his job. Remember, illegal crossings are down by 96% last year. I think 97% in 2022, and maybe 98% since 21. And 21, this time last year, we had 211,000 illegals crossing the border every month. This month we had 7,900 or 7,800. The illegal crossings are down. Our borders are secure in the southern, northern still is an issue. And Chuck Schumer is continuing going after President Trump. For what harm? Last time I showed that you had to file a lawsuit, you had to show harm. What harm can Chuck Schumer say when the American people are safer underneath President Trump? What harm has it done to him? I'm sure he's had security this whole time, so he hasn't had to deal with the illegal activity that's going place. So I would like to know what court allowed him to file this, because there is no harm he can show. Now, that goes back to the injunctions, right? Underneath the injunctions, President, and I like to bring this up because people need to understand the injunctions just taking place. Underneath Biden or Obama, 8 years in Obama, the court only stepped in 8 or 12 times to put an injunction against his executive orders. And by the way, his injunction or his executive orders was not as much as President Trump, but they were only about 15% less. Underneath President Trump, in 4 years, they did it 64 times. Biden, 14 times. Already this year, with 73 days down, they've already put in 15 injunctions against President Trump. And his executive orders are running hand in hand with what Biden did in his first 100 days, too. So the bias of the court, once again, with Chuck Schumer allowing him to move forward, and Sue is continuously moving forward and showing their bias towards the president, which is why the benches on these district courts have to be starting to held accountable.
This is an unbelievable document. Here it is in black and white. Democrats suing President Trump in order to let criminal aliens vote.
Right.
They do the job. They do the job for us. The best part about it all, Senator, they got 21% approval rating. I think that'll go down as President Trump's administration rolls it to successes. Here's hoping. We're fighting. Follow fighter Mark Wayne Mullin right there. Everybody knows the great senator from Oklahoma. 270,000 Americans already follow. Get on in there. See you, Senator.
See you, brother. See you.